Once again on your birthday, and a great way to start your birthday by inaugurating this lovely campus. Dr. Majmudar, the founder and the creator of the Symbiosis institutions, Dr. Vidya, Dr. Gupte, my colleague in Parliament, Shri A.P. Jitendra Reddy, who also has been a very old friend of mine, the MLA Shri Yadav, members of the privileged to be at the Symbiosis campus here. In fact, a lot of us who are in active public life and are daily used to the ups and downs of public life, visiting important campuses is a great source of inspiration. When you interact with the young students, you see entirely a different India. It's an aspirational India. It's an India which is globally connected. And it's an India where a lot of young enterprising minds willing to break from the shackles and intellectually grow are hidden somewhere in this large audience. The last 20-25 years have seen a very subtle change in India. When Dr. Majmudar says that we got political freedom in 1947, economic liberalization in 1991, on the third proposition, I think we should not be so pessimistic, for the reason that as a democratic society, one important thought process in India which changed from the traditional thinking was that people could and individuals could set up educational institutions, slowly move towards a situation they could devise their own educational programs, create their own prestigious degrees, develop their own brands, many of which could be even globally compatible. That government would control all this, and that it's the exclusive responsibility of the government to provide all this, I think is an idea which has now been broadly rejected. Government is an important contributor because there are large sections, particularly vulnerable sections, to whose assistance the government has come. But 20-25 years ago, I would not have imagined that such large numbers of credible educational institutions, private universities, private educational institutions, at school levels they were coming up. But at the level of higher education we had not anticipated. But this is a change which has come and probably come for the better. You rightly mentioned that elsewhere in the world, some of the best universities, you named a large number of Ivy League universities which are all privately administered in the US. And I think one of our great aspirations is, and that's an economic necessity also, to create these institutions in India. And the reason is very simple. Agriculture in India barely gives to the agriculturist a subsistence. In fact, people are already underemployed there. We can't afford to have 55% people in agriculture whose contribution to the national GDP is only about 16% or so. And therefore that creates inequalities. In terms of manufacturing, our aspiration is that manufacturing should be about 25% of our economy. It is still not. And therefore we lost the opportunity when the first industrial revolution came. We lost the opportunity when the second and the third industrial revolutions came, that is low cost manufacturing. China and other Asian economies benefited more than us. Now they say it's the fourth industrial revolution. Is it India's opportunity to catch up? Hopefully we may, but we are not sure. The hard reality is that we are a services hub. And services do contribute about 60% of our national GDP. We have one of the largest populations in the world. 1/6 of the world population lives here. And one important change which is taking place is that populations in most developing countries is contracting. In fact, they have an aging problem. 2 people are not being replaced by 2. They are being replaced by 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. The family system has cracked up. Recently I read a study that 30% of the families in the city of London are one-person, single-person families. And therefore obviously their populations are contracting. They don't even have adequate number of people to manage their own economic systems. What do we do with this large population we have? Obviously, education is a very important tool. It trains the human mind, it creates a human resource, and that resource is not only useful for India, it's useful today for the whole world. And therefore, it's educational institutions of this kind which are necessary. Now, one important feature, and that's a message to all our students who are here, that in this whole mass of education, you will always have a very large crowd of people. And this very large crowd of people has the ability to throw up a few who have an ability to reach the top. In a search for excellence, the crowding is always at the bottom. Space is always available on top. And I think one area where the world is changing, and changing for the better, is that in this endeavor to reach the top, which family you come from, what economic strata, caste or community that you come from, also becomes irrelevant. This has been one of the great hidden gifts of liberalization post 1991, that regional, caste, community barriers have all been broken. And therefore anybody from any background can come up, any strait of wealth can come up and reach the top. And I think a very simple exercise, which any one of your MBA students could do, is to pick up the list of the top 20 industrialists who existed before 1991 and compare that list with a new list of 2016. You'll barely find a few names in common, because that was a different kind of a regime, and therefore in a liberalized open regime, it's only the survival of the fittest. And now therefore you have across the world a new generation of entrepreneurs who has emerged out of the system. In fact, people have come up, they have disrupted the traditional thinking, they have disrupted the traditional economy, and then created a new space for themselves. And I think it's extremely important that institutions like Symbiosis, literally hundreds of such institutions across the country have now to come up, so that anybody who's is willing is not deprived of that opportunity. It's also equally important that in this state, which is the youngest state in India, we have such institutions spread across the geography of the state which have to come up over the next few years. Telangana as a state has been born out of a struggle. It's been born out of an aspiration. It obviously has some advantages. A city of Hyderabad being there itself is a big advantage. But it has a second advantage also. And the second advantage is that the people of this region have conventionally proved to be very entrepreneurial. And therefore, within a short period of time, its ability to catch up is going to be there. And rather than just the concentration in and around Hyderabad, I think equity has to spread now over the next 1 decade or so across the state. So we need to have great infrastructure, physical infrastructure. We need to have an infrastructure of educational institutions, universities, more townships coming up, because towns are conventionally new engines of growth. And when they do come up, I have no doubt in my mind that Telangana would be way ahead of the national average as far as incomes and earnings are concerned. And therefore it will have the ability to push up India's growth itself because of the natural advantages the region itself has. I've had the opportunity of being at your Symbiosis campus in Pune. Both your old and original campus and also the new one that you've set up. You have now a hub in Bangalore. You've started in Noida near the national capital. And of course you've started in Mehboob Nagar next to Hyderabad itself. I think you've begun well. I've just seen the campus this morning. You have 2 principal courses. But if I remember correctly, what I was told that you have 45 different disciplines in Pune. I'm sure as this campus advances, it will also probably expand both geographically and in the number of courses. And you will be able to increase its physical size and the number of students and the courses itself, so that in this district on the outskirts of Hyderabad, it becomes a very important educational hub itself. Intellectual property being a new branch of the modern era itself. And I think all the moots that the students will do will have to keep pace with all these changing areas itself. As far as management is concerned, of course, sky is the limit and job opportunities are immense. As a country grows, the desire of people to get careers outside the government itself increases. In a narrower economy, everybody looks for a career in the government. But as the economy expands, the best careers are outside the government. And therefore, management as a course will provide them with this great opportunity. And I'm sure you've created a great physical infrastructure for the campus. But at the end of the day, the educational institution is really judged by 2 factors, in addition to the physical infrastructure. It is judged by the quality of scholarships that its academic faculty itself renders. And it's also judged by the quality of alumni that it has. And as a young institution, I think these are 2 areas that you will have to aspire for. As far as the first is concerned, I think compared to institutions across the world, that culture in India of the best going into academics and then imparting teaching has to be restored back. If we see universities across the world, and I get a lot of opportunity to visit them these days, I still find that the best universities have a highlight, as Dr. Majmudar mentioned, its list of alumni, its achievers, its Nobel laureates, its researchers, the number of patents that the university has acquired, also by the quality of faculty that it has. In fact, the best universities across, you will find people in their 80s still as professors of eminence coming and teaching and taking an occasional class and supervising the universities. And that is probably what Dr. Majmudar had in mind when he said we need to break off from governmental shackles and permit flexibility of this kind. It is this that has encouraged the universities to retain the best of scholars who create an ecosystem where others of similar intellect get attracted. I am sure as we advance, we see the best global practices and the global models. Hopefully we'll come very close to emulating many of them. It's a great step that you have taken in this new state of Telangana. As I said,